Certification of an airplane is actually a really difficult process that involves showing compliance with a whole bunch of regulations. So there's a wide variety of things that we do.
The amount of work that goes into certifying an airplane is really underappreciated and really unknown to most of the marketplace, especially those people that buy airplanes.
This aircraft is certified to what the FAA calls Part 23 regulations. It's a whole set of regulations for what we call general aviation aircraft. So we are certified to that. There is a whole litany of regulations, but also just good practice things to do in flight test to test the handling characteristics. How stable is it? What happens when you move the center of gravity around from one end of the spectrum to the other? What happens when it's at the full aft end? What happens when it's at the full forward end? What happens if you mishandle the airplane? What happens if you lose an engine? So we covered all those aspects of flight test, both from the regulatory standpoint, what the FAA wants of us, but we also raised the bar and tested beyond that to really keep that Kodiak 100 DNA of safe, versatile, and in this case, a much more powerful and faster airplane than the Kodiak 100.
Certification of an airplane basically involves showing compliance to all of the regulations that apply to that airplane. In this case, it's Part 23, and there are hundreds of individual regulations that you have to show compliance to. Many of those are done by analysis. Many others actually require testing though, and that can be both structural testing, which is generally done on the ground, and then there's also other types of ground testing, like with the engine, the power plant, flight controls. We do all that testing before we actually fly the airplane. Showing compliance to the regulations is required in order to certify the airplane. But a more basic requirement is that you have to show it's safe before you're going to go and fly it. So we have to make ourselves confident that it's safe. Then in terms of flight testing, you have to show compliance with all the regulations that define flight characteristics. There are performance requirements that you have to show compliance with. Takeoff and landing performance, climb performance, which are safety related. And we have to show that we have properly measured those performance numbers and that we have put them in the manual and that they are accurate. Basically, once you've done all the testing to show compliance, then you have to report it in such a way through written reports that document the fact that you've done the proper testing, the results are accurate and they're correct. You have to convince the FAA that you have shown compliance to the regulations before they'll actually give you your type certificate. Some of the other more hazardous tests would be flutter testing, where you're intentionally taking the airplane well beyond its certified flight envelope. So anytime you're beyond what it was designed for, there are risks involved. We use what's called a build-up approach, where in that case you're building up in airspeed. So you start slow and you check the airplane out at slower speeds and then gradually increase it, looking for any kinds of issues, in that case flutter, or signs of impending flutter. And if you would see those, then you would stop and then you would discuss it and decide if you're going to go further or if there's a problem here that needs to be fixed. And that's kind of the process that we use, especially for the hazardous types of flight tests.
We actually destroyed the test wing and found out that it broke at 202% of what the design was supposed to be. So design requirements for the FAA is a maximum or a minimum of 150%. So we well surpassed that. That allowed us to put this very same wing on this airplane without having to do a bunch of extra structural testing. And so that shortened up the certification process quite a bit.
We did a lot of, it's called abuse control maneuvering. Spin testing is what it is. It's really almost impossible to spin this airplane. I tried and I tried and I tried. And we had a whole test plan approved by the FAA of what we were going to attempt in order to spin the airplane, and we just couldn't get there.
To speak to the reliability or the durability of the Kodiak, I could refer to the functional reliability testing we were doing on it, and we did a rollback test where you take off and at 50 feet you cut the engine and you land straight ahead on the runway.
A landing from that height with no power, which simulates an engine failure immediately after takeoff, is not going to be graceful. There's no flare involved in that landing. It's just really a controlled crash. I guess my Navy experience was useful there because I'm used to a lot of hard landings on the aircraft carrier, and it felt a lot like a lot of those landings on the carrier, and the airplane responded kind of in the same way. It bounced around a whole lot. It was teeth rattling.
The airplane pretty much flattened out with the landing gear, came right back up, and no issues. Not even the fairings were damaged on the aircraft, which is pretty impressive. So wheel pants, fairings, everything survived, including us.
We walked away, and I was able actually to taxi the airplane back and fly home.
It's a pretty aggressive maneuver, and the FAA's definition of passing is for the pilots to survive the test. The aircraft can be completely destroyed, and if the occupants survive, that is passing.
From a company perspective, we definitely want the airplane to still be flyable afterward. It's a very important asset to us. We wanted and we designed for a very robust aircraft. But that really was probably our highest risk test. We did a lot of engine shutdown, probably shut down the engine on the order of 40 or 50 times in a single flight, and it restarted every single time, right? Reliability is another thing we're shooting for in this aircraft, and I can say without a doubt, this is a very reliable airplane. These tests are important because this is a product for our customer, and we are not going to send a product out to the field that we are not 100% confident in. And it takes this kind of test program to gain that confidence. We needed many eyes on this, and so we had a lot of different pilots flying. We had a lot of different test witnesses in there, and we are confident that this is a safe product for the customer, and it's the right product.
The Kodiak 100 was certified to Amendment 55 standards. This is certified to Amendment 63 standards, the new Kodiak. Not only did the Kodiak pass, the new Kodiak passed with flying colors. And I really am excited for the world to start flying this airplane because I'm really excited just about how much went into it, how much care and thought and safety was put into this airplane. And if I had one airplane to fly me and my family in, it would definitely be the Kodiak.